I feel like the second they see you on camera, the second you answer their question in a live stream, boom, happy brain chemistry.
On today's episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat, we talked to Stephanie from Lights Camera Live. She runs her own marketing agency and has found the secret recipe to going live. Let's dive right in. All right, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat. I'm excited for this only because, worked with you a little bit over back in March, but been following you ever since, and just everything that you're doing, just the content production, how much you're helping people. It's awesome and it's inspiring, and I would love to just get to know more about what got you here, kind of why you're so big on content production, and just kind of pick your brain a little bit on the live side, and really how much it's helped you and how it could help other businesses. Before we dive in, how are you? How's everything going with, the craziness that's going on? how are you handling it?
Oh my gosh. It's like, how honest should I be? How PC should I be? Because you really know the me, the me that's not on stage. Honestly, I'm like, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job as far as being superintendent of the new homeschool on my block, right? So I'm homeschooling my daughter. I still have clients, which I am so blessed to still have that, right? Because video is still one of those things that's not going to go away. Like, the importance of video and social media right now is here to stay. So I've been very fortunate in that sense. I'd say the only thing that's probably driving me nuts as a extrovert person is like wanting to hang out with friends. Someone had posted on Facebook today that said, "What's a word that you haven't heard since COVID happened?" And I was like, "Oh, I know. Group hug." No one says that anymore, right? Group hug, spa day, girls' night, like
All the
I'm
fun
like
stuff.
all the fun stuff. I'm holding it. I'm trying to hold it as much as possible.
How's homeschool been?
It's good. It's good. I'm getting used to being called mommy teacher. And my house is pretty much covered with like crayons, glitter, chalk, whatever it is. This one time I actually showed up to a client meeting not knowing that I still had face paint on, right? So, it is what it is.
I think that's been kind of the fun part of this. Obviously doing more meetings virtual like this is just getting to know clients' families, coworkers' families a bit more, the screaming kids, and it just kind of helps see the other side, the personal side, a little bit more. But there's some crazy households, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, my household, because my daughter likes to do these like virtual summer camps.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she is the girl, Dustin, that's like, "Mom, green screen." So right now she's in Frozen summer camp. And so we have like this green screen where it looks like she's in Elsa's ice castle. And then she wanted face paint to be Olaf. It's a whole thing. It's a production because she knows mommy's mommy.
I would expect nothing. I would expect nothing less, to be quite honest.
I was like, I have an extra blue Yeti mic. All right, let's get the lights going. Like, what do you want to do? It's a whole thing.
Awesome. And really, before kind of getting more of your background, you mentioned a lot social media, you got clients. I'd love the audience to kind of understand more of what it is that you do in your day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, like, I'm an ad agency veteran. My background is in PPC, SEO, and social media. That's like
I didn't know that, and my background is literally PPC. That's what I started in 8 years ago. And
PPC, man, you give me like an Excel spreadsheet, I will pivot the heck out of that thing. I'm all about data and numbers, and so that's where I come from. And the reason why I shifted over into live streaming was mostly because when I was pregnant with my daughter, I had to choose a path of, okay, do I still do agency life where I could be working 50 plus hours a week? Or, because I've done this for Nike, Sephora, and Clinique, I sure as hell can do it for myself, go down my own path. And so I went down my own path. And you probably experienced this too when you started your own venture, but like everyone was calling themselves a strategist. And I was like, what? No. That's not right. All right. So then, instead of just telling people what I did, not just talk the talk, I wanted to walk the walk. And I think live streaming is really the best way to give people a glimpse into my thought process, the framework of how to onboard clients. And that's what they really appreciated, because you could kind of see what it is to work with me before actually signing a contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then ever since then, just live streaming took off. Then I became known for that, which is crazy because I was never like a broadcast major
Uh-huh.
or any of that stuff. Like even meeting you guys at Social Media Marketing World, you had all your gear. And I'm like, I have a GH5, but I only know how to use it for like this one setting, you know? And then Dre comes by with like his gimbal, and you guys
A
are crazy.
robot, basically.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So I mean, at what point did you get into live? I mean, I'm super bullish on it. We started going live with something, and I think there's tons of opportunity. I mean, the platforms are pushing it quite a bit, but I mean, outside of giving people a glimpse into kind of your mindset, I mean, was that the only reason why you started going live more, or were there other?
I think it was more, I wanted to go live to separate myself from the sea of sameness, because everyone just wanted you to fill out a form or download a lead magnet. And to be honest with you, I could also be a lazy marketer. I'm like, no, let me just show you. It's like, let me just show you. And what I found was that like as soon as I was done with the live stream, Dustin, like all of a sudden my inbox was boom, new lead. I know what it is that you're capable of doing. I like your production. I would like to work with you. What are the next steps? I didn't have to do anything. It's like, let me give you a webinar and retarget you via ads
Hmm.
and all that other stuff. It was, I like what you deliver. I want to work with you, and let's move from there. And knowing how many different platforms there are with social media, right? You could be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all that other stuff. I just had to go live twice a month, and that was it.
Wow.
Then I could, play hopscotch, get down and dirty with like glitter and glue and construction paper and all this other stuff, but still have clients.
No, I love it, and I mean that's why we got started. I mean, when we started this business 2 years ago, that's why we started a podcast. Was it's like everyone has the lead magnets, this PDF and that, and it's like, well, why not talk about what's in your brain and actually articulate what you can do? And it's amazing what opportunity it's brought in terms of just, I mean, even clients, but just the networking that it's brought on, and I'm huge on it as well, and it's cool to see it. And it's funny that you mentioned that your background is a PPC and marketing. Cause I mean, even working with you, that I thought your whole thing was live stuff. And so have you fallen into that where people are reaching out to get help with taking them live or,
Oh,
um,
yeah. Yeah. A lot of people reach out and ask, hey, Stephanie, how do I revamp my show so that it actually has a flow to it? How do you do your graphics? All of that stuff. And I had done like a group coaching program, which was really fun to see,
mhm.
because I would get clients that were like, no, I'm super shy. I don't want to be on camera. And then now they're all like, put me on camera, right? And they show up to virtual panels now, and they have like the best set. They're like the Beyonce of the panel. And I'm like, yes, girl, yes. So I'm helping clients launch their own live shows, because honestly, Justin, it gets you on the fascination fast track to be on a first name basis with key decision makers, right? Someone could be hanging out on your site reading blogs all day long, but I
Mm.
feel like the second they see you on camera, the second you answer their question in a live stream, boom, happy brain chemicals. They're all about you. They're already crushing about you. They're like, dang, huh, where else can I find Dustin? I'm gonna hit him up on Instagram. I'm gonna find him on Twitter. Right? Like, they want to get to know you a
Yep.
lot better. And I feel like live streaming offers so many more opportunities.
No, and I agree. And I mean, it's funny, like right before this, probably an hour ago, we were working on a proposal, and I mean, we have some videos in there and stuff like that, but I'm like, one, I think the proposal looks good from a design perspective, but from what I'm used to seeing. But even then, I'm like, what if we just started doing these like literally like a 10-minute walkthrough of like the office and use visuals and did a video proposal? I mean, how many people are doing that? And even outside of just being different, there's so much opportunity and really showing your personality and building that relationship, which you can't do through just a proposal that's all text based or images and whatnot. And I mean, even outside of just getting free eyeballs because the social media platforms are pushing it so much. It's like there's so much power in that building a relationship and really, I mean, especially now with COVID going on, the power of humanizing your brand. And I think that's what it kind of does. Is it makes your brand relatable. It's not so much a company, it's the people behind the company. And that's what, to me, I think people love buying. Um,
I love that. Yeah, it's so true because even now, it's so much more about your relationships and who you're going to be doing
mhm,
business with. It's not always about who has the best prices. I've worked with clients now that are trying to move their IRL events to URL events. And um, it's kind of like a California gold rush back in the day of like which is the best virtual platforms, and some of them are getting
mhm,
swindled. And the best way to avoid those traps right now is to leverage your relationships. Ask them, what resources have you used? Can you recommend this platform? All that stuff. Because no one wants to put on a crappy online event,
yeah.
especially when there's so many different platforms that are available. And so if you know, then they're going to reach out to you.
Absolutely. Have you had an uptick in people reaching out to help out with virtual events? It's like, hey, I see you going live. How could I turn this into? Because I know you do a lot with Ecamm and stuff like that. I mean, has there been an uptick in that, and are you pursuing it? If so, or kind of what is that
Oh
looking like?
yeah. It's so funny because back in like 2019, I had made this prediction that live video producer remotely producing someone else's show was going to be a thing. This was last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had taught it over when I was over at MDMC, Missouri, St. Louis, and people were all like, I don't know if people would be really interested in that. And now it's a thing. It's it's a thing. I have companies calling and saying, we have an annual shareholder meeting that's coming up. We don't want to do a regular Zoom. We want to do like a countdown, testimonials. They want it to be a production. And Ecamm allows me to do that because I could switch up the different scenes. I could
Mm-hmm.
bring in different people. You could broadcast to different platforms. But yeah, it's not just about live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, or whatever. But now I see it being integrated into these virtual conferencing platforms. Like you could use a virtual camera like Ecamm and plug it into a Zoom or plug it into a Google Hangout or your Citrix and all that other stuff. And it's the baddest thing. It's like, it's so cool. Like their attendees are like, how the hell did you do that? Like all of a sudden you're like David Copperfield and you're like, yes, like bring on the wind machine. This is everything.
No, I think it's opened up so many opportunities. I mean, we're working on something where, I mean, obviously video is a big part of what we do, where it's always been like, well, we can't really help people from out of state. I mean, you can, but there's also costs involved. I mean, flying and all that type of stuff, where it's like, I mean, with Ecamm and everything that's going on, we're working on some type of package we're offering where it's like we could help produce something for someone. All they have to do is have a camera, give them instructions on how to do it. But it's like we can do more talking head stuff. I mean, all the way from here, and then with the graphics and everything, can do some post production on it. But it's like you can make something look really good and be states away. And I think it's only gonna open up so many more opportunities as we move forward. I mean, it really is
Yeah.
amazing.
It's something that I've dubbed now as like live video producer. And some people they only know one platform, right? They're
Mhm.
like, they only know vMix, Wirecast, or StreamYard or Ecamm. But I think if you are a strategist in the sense that you know all the different platforms, man, you're unstoppable at that point. Plus, you also not only do you know like the video production of it, you know how to keep an audience engaged from A to Z, and you know what are the prerequisites or the limitations of every single platform. That's what I think is the difference that makes the difference. Because some people, I'm like totally geeking out with you now, is that some people you'll find people on Fiverr that call themselves live video producers when in actuality they're scene switchers. They're just switching, like, oh,
uh
and you're the spotlight and you're the spotlight. You're like, no, you need like a producer to do the graphics, the overlays, how it's going to like all funnel together to
yeah.
make a really cool production.
Yeah, no, it's I could tell, gonna nerd out quite a bit. I To your point, it's like going back to PPC stuff. If you know, I mean, I know people that are good at one platform, whether it's just Google Ads or just Facebook, but if if you know all of them, it's like you can take basically you can take what someone's trying to accomplish and reverse engineer. All right, well, this platform has this type of targeting. This can do this can't do that. And so you can kind of put together a paid media strategy that's different channels based off of what their goals are that will help them get there and accomplish that.
Exactly. Creativity, I feel like, is the most valued trait these days. Is I know PPC or I know ECAM, but how can I shift that laterally into a different industry and still make it work and wow that audience? You know, just keep experimenting, I would say.
That
Don't limit yourself.
ABT, that's what we're all about. Always be testing. Always be testing. So, I
I
mean,
was like, wait, is that a new EDM artist?
nope, always be testing. It's our slogan. So, so I mean, obviously doing a lot with video and social and everything right now, but kind of would love to hear how it all got started. I mean, you mentioned pretty big brands helping out on the PPC side. When did you get into marketing or digital marketing, and what kind of got you started?
Oh, this is like the way back. This
Yeah,
is
let's
where
go
you
way
see like
back.
the way back machine. The first social media agency that I worked at, man, it was probably like I'd say 2006, because Facebook back then was still only college campuses. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, I actually said that. Um, but I had worked at a social media agency that specialized in giveaways. And it was all about UGC content. And so we would work with your L'Oreal's, your Samsung, Smashbox, Nike, Sephora Clinique, where we would say, here are brand assets. You love our brand. Make a new slogan for us. And whichever one gets like the best votes, you'll win a new wardrobe or whatever.
Yeah.
That was very experimental back in the day, because you would have these creative directors and they're like, oh my God, they know nothing about branding guidelines. Like you would see like their heads explode.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, we would say, that's what social media is. You can't limit your content creators, because if they have a vision of how they want it to be, then they're going to give it a shot. And so back then, when we were doing these online sweepstakes stuff and UGC content, it was always experimental budget, meaning PR, PPC, and SEO always had a huge bulk of the budget. And you know this,
Yeah.
right? And social media was such a small portion of the budget that eventually, when the market crashed, right, the whole housing stuff had happened, the agency got axed. We
Yep.
lost clients and all that stuff. And so that's when I made the decision, like, oh crap, what should I do now? And knowing that PPC is like here to stay, right? Digital marketing and the evolution of what it was going to be, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to go for, because it's a stable career and I'll learn so much. And that's when I worked at Covario, which was like the largest private search marketing agency in the US. That's when I got to work with, oh my gosh, Research in Motion, the makers of BlackBerry.
Ooh,
Woo!
sweet.
Yeah. So I had managed EMEA and APAC, which is like the Asian countries and the UK and whatnot. And it was interesting because even back then, I remember doing competitive market research about what's trending in the mobile telecom industry. And then all of a sudden, Apple rolls out the iPhone. And I'm like, hey, you guys should pay attention to this. No, 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 we're BlackBerry. We have a keyboard. And I was like, okay. Okay. Um, and so that was PPC. And then during that time, right? So Apple has the iPhone, and all of a sudden you're seeing like Facebook opening up and you're seeing other channels happening, and social media was no longer an experimental thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I shifted over into a creative agency, which was really fun, because now I was sitting with the PR team, the creative team, the digital team, and social media. And whenever we pitched a client, we would all sit together, kind of like Lord of the Rings, where you have like
I love
all
it.
like the hobbits and the elves,
Uh-huh.
and you're like, everyone has their say about what happens to this ring and how's it's going to get to Mordor. But like, how is this client project going to come together? What's the
Yep.
fellowship of this creative project? And I think that was like a really fun experience, because we would talk about campaigns from different angles. Like, how would you repurpose this content for a 15-second television commercial? How are you going to play this for an audience that's going to listen to it in traffic or on a podcast or whatever? And social was a part of it. That was fun. And that was probably the last agency that I worked with before launching my own stuff.
No, I love it. And I mean, doing a lot of creative stuff now. You've done creative stuff in the past. And what I'd love to ask is, I mean, you mentioned you got to give creators the freedom to kind of create. You also have the branding directors. There's always that clash. I mean, how have you seen it approached, or how have you approached it to try and, I guess, give the creatives their freedom to create, but also keep it branded? Because I mean, that's something that I've
Yeah.
people struggle with a lot, and it to me. I always approach it with like, well, we have data, so why don't we do an A/B test and really see what works? And then as you get the data and then you build that trust, especially early on, it's like, I don't like that idea. Well, why don't we try it and see what it looks like? And once we get the data back, if it's clearly a winner, you kind of win more trust. But I mean, I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on how.
Yeah, I think from a social perspective, whenever we worked with influencers on a specific client project, we would bump heads with the creative director a lot.
Hmm.
Because the creative director had their specific styling guidelines on how things were supposed to be positioned and whatnot, or how things should be phrased. But more often than not, the creative director doesn't know the platform where the content is being published to,
Huh?
right? Like I wouldn't go on Facebook and put 30 hashtags in a post. It doesn't know, like just no.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that on like Instagram, right? You'd have like your underline and then your 30 hashtags, whatever. But would you do that on Twitter? No. So it's, you still go to like your delegate of social media and you would say, would this fly? Would this work? In most cases, when we were working with influencers, we would brief them on branding guidelines, but they know their audiences. Creators will know, like, well, it's not going to just be one talking head the entire time. I have to switch scenes. I have to do something to keep the audience engaged because they know how to tell the story to their audience, not you, creative director, because, in most cases, the creative director knows how to tell a story for television, for commercials, for that type of medium, but not from the content creator's perspective, not from how they're going to use it in a Facebook group or in an Instagram live or any of that stuff. So I think there kind of has to be like a melding of the minds and a compromise.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just more conversation, but I'm just a huge proponent of, let's just figure out how not going over the lines, but how close we can get to those lines, and let the data speak for it, and we'll see, what's the clear winner.
Yeah, it was. Are you a fan of Dave Chappelle by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
do you remember? Do you remember the segment that he did about Rick James?
Uh-huh.
And then Charlie Murphy's talking about how like Rick James was a habitual line stepper. That's how. That's how I felt. Like the creative director was like, social media is a habitual line stepper. And I was like, what? Like, sometimes you gotta go over the line a little bit. But yeah, I would say my creative director sent me that GIF 1,000 times. He'd be like, you are a habitual line stepper. These are the branding guidelines. And I'm like, no, it's okay.
Lines are there to push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop.
So I mean, you worked with big brands, worked at different agencies, and then that kind of led you to starting your own thing. I mean, what was it that got you excited? I know, I mean, you had a little one on the way, but I mean, what was that whole process like? I mean, did it start as a side hustle and then turn into a main thing, or was it like, hey, we're jumping off a cliff, let's go?
Yeah. I would say when you're working at an agency, because the turnover rate is so high,
Mm-hmm.
it was standard for us to always have our side hustles. And usually our side hustles were so small that it never really conflicted with the major agencies clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I had that body of work on the side. And I think what was really like, oh, hey, we're totally going to do this is when a client reached out, and this client was a major biopharmaceutical company in New York. And I was like, this covers my whole entire salary. This one client. And I think even then I was freaking out. Dustin was like, this is $100 an hour. Oh my God, that is so cute. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like,
Isn't it funny to look back and
yeah.
look at some of those numbers, thinking back then it was like, oh my, I'm going to retire, or.
God, I know. I was like, I got the email. I stood up from my desk. I'm like, all of you, I like you, not you, not you, but like that's how I felt. And so signed that contract and it was great. It was good. And I think because when you do good work, people still want to work with you. And so they'll find you when you're moving different agencies. It's just that's the typical mindset,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, where's Dustin now? Oh, he left you, he broke up. Okay, cool. Where's he now? Because I want to work with him. And that was kind of the same thing that happened is clients were now looking for me. They're like, hey, where's Steph? And what made it so easy for them to find me was because when you live stream, boom, you're at the very top of the newsfeed. Anyone that was like friends with you or were fans of your Facebook page, they get a notification. They're like, hey, what is Dustin up to? And that's what I mean by like live streaming makes you top of mind and tip of tongue. Because even if they don't need your services right then and there, they know in the back of their mind, hey, there's this girl who does live streaming and it's sick. So if I ever need to bring some on, let's contact her.
I can agree more. I mean, it's that top of mind awareness that, I mean, even outside of live streaming, just, I mean, when it gets to PPC stuff, I think is often overlooked. I mean, in terms of just looking at frequency, I mean, I talked to a lot of people on like with Facebook ads, and it's like as soon as frequency starts reaching up there, or climbing up there to like 6, 7, it's like, oh my God, they're seeing us too much. But it's like, you need 15, 16 touch points before anyone even decides to make a decision. And you need that frequency, whether it's an ad or live streaming.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And
yeah.
it's even one of those things where it's like you don't have to go live every single day. I tell clients you could go live for 30, 40 minutes. I bet you could get so many 1 minute videos just from that one interview. So there's your 1 minute videos, there's your blog posts, and then you repurpose it because you probably did something hilarious that you could turn into a GIF, and then like that becomes a thing. There's just so much that you can do.
No, I mean, that's the podcast started trying to, one, just help with that thought leadership, I guess, but it was also to help people. But then we quickly started realizing like, hey, we're doing an hour thing on just PPC stuff, and as we're listening to it, it's like clip, 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 and it's just like, wow, in a 1 hour span, now we have 13 clips plus a full hour episode. Now we can use these clips to use in our email marketing. Now we can create a blog off of them. And it's just like, it's amazing how much content you can produce off of doing something for an hour. And it's not too hard to do, especially if you love it and know it.
Exactly. I find even when speaking to other content creators, we know how to speak in sound bites because we're like,
3 minute
oh,
chunks.
you were like, this is gonna be good. Okay, I'm gonna rant for a good minute because this is totally gonna work. Yeah, it's just the video. I believe in a video first strategy. I find that if you let someone speak their mind, answer the top 10 frequently asked questions about their business, product, or service, that's 10 1 minute videos right there.
Yeah.
Done. You
Yeah.
know? And if you have something like, let's say, a Gore Pulse, you could schedule out that content where, let's say, that one live video, you have 10 1 minute video clips. For the next 10 weeks, you're covered for that Monday. Do another live video. Now your Tuesday's covered for the next 10 weeks. And then you could shuffle it like a deck of cards. And now you're rotating content. People are like, man, Dustin is everywhere. He is crushing it. You easily hit those 15 touch points just like
Mhm.
that.
Yep. No, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And kind of, with everything going on with COVID, I mean, you have an agency, you're doing a lot with, clients, digital marketing. What are some trends that you're seeing on the digital space? I mean, at first when everything happened, it's just like, all right, a lot of people were pausing, a lot of people were cutting budgets. But then after about a week or two, is like, all right, well, this is gonna be here. We still have to do business, we still have to do stuff. And all of a sudden a huge like wave of questions, opportunities came in on the digital side. It's like, how can we reach our customers still without physically being there? And so it's like there's definitely been an influx there. But I mean, what are is there anything that you're kind of seeing in terms of trends?
I'm definitely seeing an uptick in PPC, because people are searching for information. They want to find it. I definitely see live streaming and the video first strategy becoming more prominent now. More people are even hiring PR agencies or even myself for media training. And I think that's also kind of like a clear differentiator between like who's just starting out with live video production because they'll call it as like how to be confident on camera. It's like, no, No PR agent, like no CEO is going to search, how do I become confident on camera? Like the phrase for that, ladies and gentlemen, is called media training. And when you know that, then you could price your services accordingly, right? And so I those are the things that I see coming up a lot. I have a lot of people now asking about tools and software that they can use to repurpose content because now they're seeing it. We don't have a lot of time on our hands. So if you could take that 1 minute or that one live video and chop it up in as many ways as possible, then that's awesome. They're all about that.
Yeah, I mean, what are some of those tools that you're recommending or seeing?
Right now, I use Headliner for the audiograms. I mean, it's like the easiest thing to do for me. I use Otter.ai to transcribe my live videos into blog posts. Otter is like,
Isn't
for
that great?
me, oh my gosh, it's the best thing. I love how it even recognizes my voice. I'm like, oh my God, you know me.
Everyone ever is getting pumped because it's, yeah, we went from like Rev to, what was the last one?
Temi,
Temi,
yeah.
and then Otter.ai. And it's
Yeah,
just,
Otter.ai is sick. I love it. I'm one of those people where I love video. I love to watch video when I have the time, but
mhm,
sometimes, like even with social media marketing world, right?
yep.
They're like 40-minute presentations and the freaking replays don't have like a playback speed, right? So I'm like, just give me the audio. And then I put it into Otter because you get like 6,000 minutes for like what, 10
10
bucks.
bucks
It's
a month.
nothing.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nothing. And so then I just get the transcript and I figure out, okay, there you got to the key points. Thank you. And then I can move on to the next one.
hmm
So like my go-to repurposing tools would obviously be like Otter.ai, um, Headliner for the audiograms, Easel for creating the graphics. That's my go-to. I have a VA in the Philippines who helps me takes those transcripts, puts them as like captions into the videos, and then turns them into blog posts. That's amazing. Giphy, the app, I use that to create GIFs out of like the hilarious intros and outros that we do. That's always fun. Um, but yeah, those are like my main tools. I'm probably in them like every day. Easel for sure every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think everyone's looking for all those little tools, and I think just apps in general, I think are gonna be huge. I mean, just in the future, people are looking to get more efficient, especially as they're trying to make dollars go further. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's even one of those things where I'm finding parents have bored teenagers in high school that are looking for something to do. And, you teach them how to repurpose content, set them up on Fiverr or whatever. They're now a freelancer that's helping, bring money into the household. I just feel like you, me, content creators, video, there's so much innovation and a lot of things that we could play around with right now.
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I mean, with video, you keep mentioning a video first approach. I mean, what does that mean? Are you using it video first in ads? Just everything you lead with is video, or
Everything I lead with is for sure video. I mean, you put me in front of like a Google Doc with like a blinking cursor, and I'm like, error, malfunction, like, but you ask me a question, then I could answer it for you as if I would talking to a friend. And then I could polish it up and drop in the SEO keywords and all that other fancy stuff. But like, if I just know it off the top of my head, I will start there. Because if you put me again, like, here, now you have to write a newsletter, I'm like, which is all right. So I usually do video first, even with clients. We'll do the 10 by 10 formula, which is what are your top 10 frequently asked questions about your business, your product, or your service? And then you'll write down the top 10 should ask questions that people should be
I like that
asking,
one.
but they don't know because they're not the expert you are, right?
Creates that
And then
aha moment.
and they're like, oh, snap, I
Aha,
thought
that
I
makes
did.
sense.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, I didn't know. You're like, of course you didn't know because I am the master. And so when you create that content, now you have those 10 1-minute videos. Even just like answering that one question could be in and of itself its own live video that you could expand upon that turns into like a blog post. But I always do the 10 by 10 with clients because then you start to see them like, oh, that's interesting. It just gets that creativity out of them a lot faster. And then once they create that content, they'll see the questions that come up of like, oh, can you expand on this? And then that becomes its own 10 by 10.
Yep. No, I love it. And the reason why I ask is whenever we're running ads and stuff, I mean, ours is really a video first approach. And I mean, talking about SEO with videos, I mean, even outside of that with Google and custom intent audiences and stuff, I mean, knowing what people are searching for on YouTube, you can then run that like one video. How is live video great? Cool. You do that. And now you can target people if they're searching for it and run it as a pre-roll, and then retarget them with banners and search and all that. But I mean, the cost of actually reaching people on YouTube is so inexpensive for what you can communicate and how much attention you can get. And it's, to me, it's like everything we do from a prospecting perspective is all video, because you can build a relationship, you can communicate so much more, and then you have the ability to retarget them through, you know, other channels and stuff. And so we're very bullish on the video
On the
first.
video. Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. It's one of those, like, it's Dustin again. Damn it, Dustin. You know? Dustin keeps following me. Yeah, I mean, it works. I mean, that's why you see it when you go on Amazon. And if you didn't complete your purchase, it's like, knock, knock, knock. You didn't complete your purchase. Here's a 15% off coupon. I was like, that's exactly what I was waiting for. And then and then you buy it, right? I mean, Nordstrom does it, Neiman Marcus. It works.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, do you think those ads get, because I mean, I don't see too many smaller brands doing YouTube ads, and I mean, it's usually the Monday.com and
Oh my
do you think
God, they follow you too.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I
It's like,
probably like
stop it,
12
Monday.
times a day. I probably shouldn't be watching that many videos a day, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, do you think it could get overused, or it's anywhere near that, or there's more opportunity for the smaller brands when it comes to even YouTube marketing?
I definitely think it's an opportunity for the smaller brands. It's just something that they don't hear that very often because, I mean, you were there at Social Media Marketing World, and most people that attend that conference only know social media. And it's not that very often that a small company has their eyes on what PPC or SEO is doing. It's usually like, I only have budget for marketing as a bucket. So I'm going to try to hire someone that knows kind of a little bit of everything, but not a lot of it, right? That's where you and I are kind of spoiled because we know what we know and what's possible. So I think when the smaller companies start to realize the power of retargeting and the pre-roll and all of that stuff, they're like, oh, hold up, I could get this many impressions and not have to pay anything because they didn't click on it. It's gold. They're like, why have I never heard of this before?
Uh-huh. My
Yeah.
biggest thing is like, I mean, with the pre-roll, look, you had the chance to skip it in 5 seconds. If someone does, you're not charged anything. The only time you're charged is someone watches 30 seconds or more. And I know they're gonna lower that to 15 here pretty soon. But I mean, it just in terms of how much it costs to get a 30-second video view, I think is absolutely insane, especially when you give someone the opportunity to skip it. It blows my mind. I mean, with that being said, I feel like social and Facebook and Instagram has had such a huge push that so many people focus on that I feel like Google is a huge, not missed opportunity.
It's a behemoth.
Missed opportunity because so many people are trying to jump on this. Everyone needs to be on social. That I feel like that's what so many businesses are trying to do. That I think there's so much opportunity on the Google side that.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of like reminds me of back in the day, like when I was in high school and it was recruitment day, right? And you'd have like these little booths where it's like, come join the army, no, join the Navy, and blah, blah, blah. If you imagine it now, it's like in the world of digital marketing, there are so many raw cheerleaders for social media because it's fun, you know, and you could do this and I use it every day. So why not make that my career? But, you know, you don't really, I mean, coming from the PPC side, it's like, we're nerds, you know, we're nerds. Like, let me show you what I could do with this pivot table, you know, like, let me concatenate this for you. Like, that wasn't like super sexy to talk about, which is why I feel like not a lot of people go down that path unless you worked at an agency, unless a recruiter had picked you out specifically to tell you the benefits of, like, just people just don't know about it, you know? Like my husband's been doing like PPC for like the last, goodness gracious, oh, it's gonna be our 10-year anniversary. 10 years, you know? Never had any trouble finding a job. But in social media, it's so competitive because you could find, you know, John Smith on Fiverr who wants to do this and that. And I think if you really want to be successful in digital marketing and do social media, it's to your benefit to know how social works with PR, how social works with PPC, how social works with SEO. But if you are only social, that's where I'm like, you got all of your eggs in one basket. And again, that's coming from experience, right? Having worked at an only social media agency, experimental budget, and then now being able to say, okay, I know PPC, I could do this and I could do that. You become like a Swiss Army knife, and they're like, holy
Mhm.
snap, like Dustin's badass, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the power is. It's like I feel there's so many people that are like, no, you need to do YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or this. But I think where the power is how to use all of them
Yeah.
together and create an omni-channel approach type
It's the
of.
Voltron, man. That's Voltron. That's like what you're trying to do. You know, you're like, this is
Yep.
Voltron. Yeah. I kid you not, we probably did like a pitch where I was like, and this is PR, and this is like Voltron pops up on the screen. But I mean, that's what it is.
I mean,
That's how.
how well do you think companies are executing that, or agencies are executing that omni-channel approach? I mean, that's the main reason why I started this. Is I mean, I started with Google a while back, and then worked at agencies. But to me, I saw that that's where the opportunity was. You had your departments, but everyone kind of worked in solo or
Silent.
silos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't. I mean, solo is a silo, I guess, but but there was none of that like cross. I get kind of like how you said, where you had the Lord of the Rings meeting where everyone
Thank
talked
you.
about
I
how
was like, please don't let me be the only one talking about these nerdy references. My God. Yeah, it's the fellowship of the different marketing disciplines. And I think that's where I was lucky to work in an agency like that respected that respected everyone's disciplines, and we could air out our grievances of like, well, PR is not using UTM parameters.
Look at your UTMs too.
Like, God damn it,
Getting
PR.
real nerdy.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot of people have that experience. Like I said, it's usually just one thing and they go down that route. But that's an advantage for you and I, is that you and I can sit down there, look at a project and see it from different perspectives and different lenses and say, okay, if we want to do this, let's do a phased approach or let's integrate it somehow. But we are creating opportunities, whereas someone just comes in and like, well, I only know this, so just call me when you want to do that, right?
Yeah. Yep. And to me, it's fun because you get to be creative, but sometimes the mind goes a little too much because it's like I feel like most of the time it's well, I need help with social media. It's like okay, well we'll do social media rather than it's like well, why do you think you need social media? What's the problem or what are you trying to accomplish? And then peeling back, it's like well, you think you need that, that's part of it, but what about these things and I don't
And
know.
then
Do
you
you ever get
start
too bogged
feeling
down and like, there's just too many different options and opportunities that could be done? I mean, do you ever deal with that?
it's one of those things where the client wants what the client wants, but you're always going to try to give them the best advice as much as possible because you're the consultant, right? And so I would never recommend something where I'm like, just do this because that's what I know. It's more like this is what's best for you, and this is what I'm going to prescribe, basically, right? And I think the best way to describe it to a client would be it's like losing weight, right? I don't know about you, but this whole stay-at-home thing, I have. There's a reason why live video is only waist up. Um, but if I wanted to lose weight, right, it's not like, oh, let's only lose arm fat and the jiggle, right? Like, no,
That's a great way to put
you gotta
it.
do like the whole thing. You gotta do like the burpees and the sprints and all of that to get the overarching result. And I think that's the best way to sell it to a client is like, I know you want more mentions or sales and blah, 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 but you have to think about the whole workout plan, right? So here's the Dustin workout plan for your get fit marketing, whatever it is. But yeah, that usually works. And then they realize like, oh yeah.
That's a good analogy to compare it to. It's
Yeah.
yeah, you're not gonna lose weight in one body part. It's how
No,
can we
and
make
then
all body parts work together?
seriously, and then you like anchor it, you start playing like the Kanye West workout plan in the background and working out.
Awesome. So I mean, it's I love I you have so much more knowledge just on digital marketing than I thought. Like I said, it's everything that I thought was just the live streaming and eCam, and it's awesome to hear. I mean, knowing that what are you trying to accomplish, or what are your biggest goals? What's on your radar like the next 6 months?
Oh man. I mean, I'll say this. When it comes to like homeschooling, man, I could only think in like in 2 week time frames, right? Like, what do I need to Instacart now? But from a business perspective, I would say things that are going to be piling up, I know for sure, is going to be the live video production, because nonprofits, their fundraising season is usually like Q4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're starting that. Like even now, it's like Christmas and July stuff that's happening. So I definitely see the live video production that's going to be ramping up. For me personally, what is around my corner is the fact that 360 Marketing Squad and Eric Buto, we're dropping our new book. What? The Ultimate Social Media Marketing Guide. It's published by Entrepreneur Press. What? I know. This is crazy. Coming from the one that hates writing, I wrote a book.
Did you actually write it, or did you like talk
No.
and transcribe?
Oh my God. Okay. So that's hilarious, because Mike Alton, who's the co-author, was like, Stephanie, we need to write your chapters. I was like, you just need to ask me the question and I will answer. That's how we wrote my chapters. He would ask me a question and I knew like the stats and the figures and all of that other stuff top of my head. And then we made magic and it worked.
So did you really just do it on camera and run it through Otter.ai and then just kind of cleaned it up? I absolutely love that.
That it works. Again, limited on time. I knew what was going to, like, it's kind of like you're a producer, right? And you're a director on set and you have to pull it out of your actor. That's how you get it out of me. It's ask me the question on video and boom, you got it. You're good.
No, I love it. And I love the link to the book. We can definitely drop it in the show notes and stuff like that. And I'd love to check it out. And as we kind of wrap it up, I mean, you got knowledge in PPC, you got knowledge in just marketing in general, live streaming, all of that. If a brand is trying to just figure out what do I do next? What's your biggest piece of advice for someone? I mean, where should businesses focus on right now if they don't have a really robust, marketing strategy right now?
Honestly, I think that 10 by 10 formula will work out for you.
Where my head was at too.
The Kanye West song was in my head again. Damn it. But do that 10 by 10 formula, do that video. When people see you on camera, you know this already. It's like, as soon as they see you, they see your eyes, they get those happy brain chemicals, that dopamine, the oxytocin, that serotonin. They want to get to know you more, and they're going to start binge watching your stuff. You're going to get more views while you snooze as they get to know you. And when they're ready, they're going to take that plunge. But again, you could repurpose that content into blog posts, into your newsletters, but it all becomes this cohesive package. I would say start doing that, because a lot of people are just searching for answers and YouTube pops up just like that, and it's easy for people to share videos. You could play back speed. I mean, sometimes I'm reading a blog post, I'm like, man, I know you're trying to hit that 1200 word limit, whatever it is. And I'm just like, give me a headline, give me a bold, give me a quote, give me a pull quote, something.
Mm-hmm.
Give me an infographic. But yeah, videos are definitely shareable.
No, I love it, because it's I love the top 10 things, because typically if that's what you're asked, that's just what people are asking in that industry when they're looking for your product or service. And to your point, people are probably going to Google or YouTube to search that stuff. So by answering those questions, boom, your video pops up. And I love the video form. Like, what got us even more bullish on the podcast and stuff like that was the people we're doing podcasts with. You go search their name, and all of a sudden our podcast episode would show up before their website. And I'm like within 3-4 weeks, I'm like, whoa, there's some power here in the SEO side of producing video. And I honestly think that's where SEO is going to go, is less blogs
on the voice search. Ooh.
Because Google, they just started allowing podcast to be indexed. And so if you upload to Google Podcast, they basically transcribe it on the back end. And if someone searches, your episode could show up because of the keywords. And I'm like, yeah, like literally the future of SEO, I think, is podcasts and video. And so, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. But yeah, I would even say from like a PPC perspective, like voice search is definitely a thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So phrasing your content as, how do I do this? Not like how to live stream. It's like, how do I do this split screen live stream? That's what people ask me sometimes. I'm like, what are you trying to say right now? But I feel like those are going to be some keyword phrases to look out for. It's just how people conversationally ask for certain things.
Yeah. I mean, I know, so we're wrapping up. One quick last thing. As you mentioned that, I mean, the title is such a huge part of how that video ranks and stuff like that. I mean, if you give someone that advice, do you ever get that pushback like, well, that title looks weird, I don't want to do that? And I guess how do you because that's how we kind of position ongoing content production, is like the segment of this video series will be like the core keywords that we want to show up for. You're like, oh, I
Yeah.
want my branded name and all that. And it's like, well, the whole
Oh
goal of
God.
this is to show up. And I mean, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And to your point, there's a lot of data is
tough one.
powerful,
It's a tough one. Yeah.
and so you could split test headlines and see how that works. I mean, like even with email, you could split test like your headlines to see what works
Mhm.
and A/B test. Do that. I mean, I've had like collaborations on videos where like this one guy, like he just kept changing the headline. Because he was like, that didn't work. Let's try this one. Let's try that one. And then finally he came to one that I was actually driving the views. And I was like, dude, this is not even what we talked about. Just keep testing. I mean, that's all that you could really do.
Yeah.
Everyone's always testing on social media, whether they're conscious or unconscious of it. You're always going to be testing. And smart people like you and me will write down what those results are and will learn from it. Whereas other ones will just try to remember intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did I do that again?
I love it. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining today. I mean, it was great to nerd out together a bit and get to know more of the PPC side of you. I mean, if someone wants to reach out, work with you, maybe do a podcast with you, I mean, how can people find you?
The best place would be to find me at lightscameralive.com. You'll find my contact page there. So just hit me up. Let me know if it's a podcast, video, collaboration, or whatever it is that you want to do. But if you really wanted to see where I geek out, I laugh because I just bought a green screen shirt. Not a green screen, but a shirt, man, a shirt. So if you want to see like the ridiculousness that I do, then the Social Media Strategist Facebook group is where I'm at.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm definitely going to have to check that one out.
The green screen shirt. I mean, you talk about like the YouTube ads and try to get someone engaged for the first 30 seconds. Just imagine all them. Oh, it's gonna be ridiculous.
Can only imagine. Well, thank you so much and appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.